Good evening, Year 8 parents, and welcome to this very special event, the Year 8 Options Evening. Now, when we planned to do this event, normally we would do this in school and would give you the opportunity to come and meet with the various different teachers with the various different subjects, as we feel that's really the best way of working out what subjects your child wants to take on and follow on to Year 9. Now, when we planned this, we, however, didn't know what the various rules were going to be, so we have had to do an online event, but luckily we have some incredible videos that we're going to give you a link to go and watch, so you can find out all about the subjects that are on offer for your child going into Year 9. I'm going to start by introducing the people that we're going to have presenting tonight. We have Miss Smith, Head of Learning for Year 8. We are pleased to welcome Miss Evans, who's both the Deputy Head of Lower School and a timetabler, and Miss Marks, who is also a timetabler. We also have at the meeting, but not necessarily presenting, unless anyone's got a burning question for him, Mr. Wilson, who we're delighted to have with us today. My name is Mr. Jones, I'm the Head of Lower School, and I just wanted to start off by welcoming you and explaining a little bit about what the process of moving from Year 8 to Year 9 is for Kingsdale students. So the first thing is that they will be moving from lower school, where I am their head of phase, to middle school, where their head of phase would be Mr. Ngwenya. And as part of this, they are given the option to choose some new subjects. In doing this, they might decide to slim down some of their old subjects. And this we feel as a really good opportunity to develop that depth of knowledge that they really need to prepare them for GCSEs. So in many ways, whilst they are slimming down their curriculum, it's also broadening their curriculum, giving new options such as psychology, business studies, economics, etc. So it's a really great opportunity for students that we feel at Kingsdale is almost unmatched. I'm going to pass over now to Miss Smith, who's going to talk a little bit about the process and what your child needs to consider when thinking about the options that they're going to be taking into Year 9. Miss Smith.
Good evening, I am Miss Smith, so I'm one of the heads of learning for Year 8. And what I just wanted to talk to you about this evening is, like Mr. Jones said, just some of the things to consider when selecting the options and looking at what's available. So firstly, I've noticed that quite a few Year 8s feel sometimes a little bit nervous about this process. So we just want to make sure that they know it's an exciting time, and we want to make sure that they are making informed decisions. So as tutors and as heads of learning, we are here to help support their decisions and help guide where that may be applicable. We've already had some students come to us to ask what we think, but really the subject teachers are going to know the most. So if they are struggling between two options, our advice would be speak to the teacher that teaches them those options, because they will know their ability and how they're doing in that subject. A couple of things that we're doing pastorally. So the last couple of weeks we've had assemblies on the different types of options that are available. So we've had the heads of department come in for the Year 8s to give information on each subject. So that may be what the sort of curriculum is and what they look at in each subject to help the Year 8s make a bit more of an informed decision. Obviously there's a booklet being released as well, so you'll be able to have a little bit more information on what the assemblies have been on too. Our Year 8 mentor, Jevon, he has launched the Moresby programme. So I have put this on Teams for all of Year 8s. I'm going to put it on there again. I think we've had about 100 complete it so far, but we do want every Year 8 child to do this, to sign up and have a look at this. It's basically a careers guide, a careers tool. So it allows children to see what kind of careers they might have an interest in based on some quizzes and questions. So really we would love all the Year 8s to get involved in that. So they just need to pop onto Teams, on the Year 8 Teams, to get that information. Now, the main thing we find in Year 8 is that students will talk to their friends and they will ask their friends what they're picking, and they will pick the same because their friends are doing the same. This, in the long run, is quite unhelpful for them. So we really want them to think about what do they enjoy, and why do they enjoy it, not just because their friends are doing it, but what kind of things do they enjoy, you know, in geography or history, for example. And then finally, the art and design faculty are offering some taster sessions. So if your child is interested in considering art and design as an option, then they might want to get involved in that. So they'll need to ask their art teacher about details on that one. But that should be a good guide and a little introduction into what art and design do next year. So any questions, obviously, feel free to ask, but we are here to support, and it should be a really exciting time for the Year 8s. So now I'm going to pass on to Miss Marks and Miss Evans, and they're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the options that are available.
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Marks, this is Miss Evans. As we said, we're the school timetablers, so we just are going to talk you through the process and go into the nuts and the bolts of what these options that the Year 8s are choosing from actually are. Just to kind of make it really clear, we're launching the options process tonight. We'll then share a link where you can watch subject videos via the YouTube channel. The options booklet has been sent out in an electronic format, but we will print that out and give it to students towards the end of the week. And we encourage you in the next few weeks to be discussing with your, with your children what options they might like to study. Alongside that, in school, as Ms. Smith mentioned, there's a lot of pastoral support. So we've got the meetings with tutor time, heads of learning, there's assemblies, there's taster sessions. So we're trying to make sure that the students feel as kind of equipped from our end as possible to make this important decision. And then we'll be available on the 18th of March at Parents Forum for any questions that you might have, although do also feel free to get in touch with us at any time via email. And then the online form that we'll be sending out, which gives you the options where you actually choose the options, the deadline for that is the 25th of March. Okay, so the whole process is basically running over the course of March. By the end of March, students will have made the choices of what options they're going to study in Year 9 and then beyond.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what our Year 9 curriculum looks like. As part of our core curriculum, students continue to study English, mathematics, science, physical education, citizenship, RE and ICT. On the right-hand side, you'll see the number of periods each week that they get in these subjects. And then following on from that, students can choose some option subjects. So the first block they'll get to choose from is the languages block. And I'll go into in a moment what subjects fall into each of these blocks. They pick one of the languages options and they get 3 hours a week in that language that they've chosen. In the humanities block, again, they get 3 hours a week in what they've chosen. And then in the final block, the options block, they pick 2 subjects, and for each of those subjects, they get 3 hours per week in those subjects. In years 10 and 11, students carry on with their core subjects they've been running through from Key Stage 3, from Year 7 to Year 9, and move into Key Stage 4 and Year 10. And at the end of Year 11, students take GCSEs or BTECs in those subjects. In Year 9, students also pick between RE and citizenship, and that they take as an early GCSE in Year 10. And then finally, in Year 10, students can choose to do combined or triple science with the guidance of the science department.
So in terms of what is actually in each of these option blocks, block 1 is the languages option, as Miss Evans said. So that's picking one of French, German, Latin or Spanish. Block 2, the humanities option, that's students picking between history or geography. We do offer, for students who we think it's appropriate for, targeted support in English, Maths and Science as an alternative to either a language or one of the humanities. If that's something that you think your child would benefit from, then please flag it in the options form, and it's something that will come about after a discussion with the heads of learning, and we kind of want to do what's in the best interest of every individual child. The options block is where all the other subjects then come in. So students, remember, pick 2 options from this block, and this is really a combination of kind of the creative subjects that might be more coursework based and might have more continuous assessment going through, and then your kind of more standard academic subjects, so which we want to make sure that students are able to do 2 languages, or they're able to do history and geography, as well as having the arts options. The other thing just to highlight here is although PE is part of our core offer, so all students do PE twice a week in year 9, physical education is also one of the options subjects, and it's the same with computing. So computing is an option that people can pick. They'll do a qualification in it when it comes to year 10 and 11, but also all students do ICT in year 9 as a separate part of our core curriculum offer. Okay.
And just to add into this, at Kingsdale, obviously we have a big focus on giving sort of well-rounded students who leave us sort of with sort of a broad range of subjects behind them. And so we do really encourage students not to pick 2 just arts-based subjects or 2 just academic subjects. We would really encourage students to pick and think carefully about having a balance of subjects here. So we'd encourage all students where possible to do a performing art or a creative art, and then a more academic subject. There is obviously sort of flexibility in it. If your child has got a burning passion to do both art and music, for example, or to do both French and psychology, then there is that flexibility within there. But as one of your considerations, do think about, do you want your child to take both a creative and a more academic subject?
Okay, so we'll share the link to the online form shortly, but it's not due till the 25th of March, and we encourage you to think it through really carefully in the meantime. But I'll just run through what the form will actually look like. So name and tutor group, and then the parent name, and then it's really straightforward. Each time you just need to click on next, and then there'll be a drop down. You'll be given the options of what to select for the language option, for the humanities option, and then we ask that you give your first option choice, and all of the different options will be in there. And then the same thing for the second choice. So this is in block 3, the kind of options block, so your first choice and your second choice. And we also ask in block 3 for a reserve choice, just in case, for whatever reason, one of the 2 preferred options isn't available. We ask for a reserve choice just for the options block. And then if there's anything else that you'd like to consider, you can pop it in there, and we'll deal with the queries as they come up. Although also we would suggest emailing us directly if there's anything that needs dealing with kind of in the short term.
And just to add on to the forms element of it, if after you submitted your form, your child does have a change of heart and realises actually no, they've made the wrong option and they want to change it, please do. You can resubmit the form. You're not limited to doing it once, but in the comments, please make a note that this is your second submission of the form, and this is what you want your child's final option to be, just so we don't get confused and we actually get the right subjects onto your child's timetable next year.
Yes, so the deadline for the options form is Friday the 25th of March, as we said. Please get it in by that deadline. And as I mentioned before, we ask students to choose a reserve subject for the option block. So once we've got the forms in, we'll look at the allocating the choices and timetabling the classes so that we've got a balanced kind of numbers in each class the next year. Any issues will be discussed with students and parents. So if there are too few students for a subject, then we won't be able to offer it. That doesn't usually happen. If there are too many students for a subject, but it doesn't justify having 2 classes, then that might mean that not everyone will get their first choice. That's why we asked for the reserve subject choice. But as we said, this will be discussed with students and parents. And in general at Kingsdale, students do get their first choices. It's unlikely that we can accommodate students changing their minds after the deadline. So it's absolutely fine to, change your mind before the deadline. That's why we suggest waiting until later, towards the 25th of March to fill out the form. But after the deadline, we can't really make those changes. However, when students start their options in Year 9, we have a window within the first term where students can, if they're really, particularly happens if students are doing a new subject and they realise actually this isn't for them, then they have that opportunity to change. It's one of the reasons why we do the options from Year 8 into Year 9, so that then by the time they start their GCSEs in Year 10, students are really secure that they're doing the subjects that they want to do. I think that's it. So yeah, these are the links to the subject videos and the online form. We'll also put them into the
we'll put them out as an announcement after sort of Mr. Jones has finished up.
Thank you. Is it back to me? Great. I'm going to ask a couple of questions now, if that's all right, Ms. Marks and Ms. Evans. One is, if a student would be better off not doing languages due to an SEN or similar, but they don't think that they necessarily require support in English, maths or science, is it possible to do a different option instead?
Typically, because of the structure of the timetable, that's not something that we can normally offer, because it might be, say, that your child would like to do art at the same time as languages is running. It could be that, it's Year 11 art running at that time or Year 7 art running at that time. So it's not something that we can guarantee. And so if there are exceptional circumstances, it's always something we'll look at and we will consider, but it's certainly not something we can guarantee, and it's something that might really be quite difficult to accommodate.
Yeah, I think it's worth also mentioning that when we say extra support, it doesn't necessarily mean, remedial support to get a student up to a pass grade. It can also mean support to get a student from a grade 8 to a grade 9. I think that's it's quite important to recognise that we're always pushing students to make the most amount of progress in all of their subjects. So getting extra support doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting basic literacy skills or basic numeracy skills. It will be giving them that that kind of boost. It might be gifted and talented practice for maths or English, for example, that they would be doing in those support lessons. So that's something to consider as well. Another question, it may be that we'll have to refer this to a science director at a later date. But there's a couple of questions about combined and triple science and how that is assigned or chosen by the students. Do you have any feedback on that, or would we refer that to the science department?
Yeah, that's something that happens. That's something that students shouldn't worry about in Year 8. The science department, it's generally that they look at what seems to be best for students based on their kind of attainment through the course of Year 7, 8 and 9. But for the details of that process, I think we should refer to the science faculty.
And it's also my understanding that, it's something that, students can have some saying. So if they feel that they are a really passionate scientist and they really want to do triple, then, it's a discussion that can be had with the science department to see whether that will be possible for them, even if they're not quite yet academically where the science department would like them to be.
It's also worth noting that combined science doesn't preclude you from any future study in terms of A-levels. You wouldn't be stopped from doing single physics, biology or chemistry at A-level with combined science. That is enough for any A-level college. to accept onto a course if you get a good grades in the combined sciences. Another question here, can students do extra optional subjects? What other subjects has Kingsdale offered as extras? And I guess linked to that is, what is the total number of subjects that students will study in year 9? Is there an answer that we could give to that?
Well, the typical Kingsdale offer is, I believe, students coming out at the end with 10 or 11 GCSEs. There are some exceptions. So we have had some, very talented linguists, for example, who have wanted to do 3 language GCSEs, and we've made some accommodations with them perhaps coming out of a PE lesson, or with them perhaps focusing on just citizenship or RE in sort of very particular circumstances. It wouldn't be something that would be the norm, and it's something that the student would have to understand would require a lot of independent study, because it's unlikely they'll get the same complement of hours that they would do if they were doing this as one of their timetable subjects. But where possible, we do try to encourage students who are particularly keen and want to do extra subjects, but it's not something, again, that we can guarantee.
This is quite an important question. I really want to make sure that we answer this properly. And it's a good one that says, this year group have been massively affected by COVID restrictions. Why are they having to choose so early? And why can we not potentially allow them to carry on doing all of their options for one more year, as many other schools do, and choose GCSEs at this time next year? I think it's really important for us to be clear that this is something Kingsdale has always done. We have offered an early options in year 8, and we find that there's massive benefits to that, not least because of the amount of depth that the students can go into in year 9, in particular in the options subjects. If you have students doing, let's say, my own subject, music, that know that they're not going to do GCSE music and know that they wouldn't necessarily be interested in the subject, doing it all the way into year 9, then they may find that they lack that motivation, and then the other students don't make as much progress because the teacher having to cater for a continuingly wide variety of students. Whereas what we find is, with the ability to specialise this early, then those students can actually make more progress, and they can make progress quicker, which is a massive advantage that we feel Kingsdale has. The other side of that is obviously changing the structure of just one year group would be, I imagine, and I'm happy to be corrected by Ms. Marks and Evans, would be a very difficult thing to do indeed, if we had to have, let's say, continue to have full year groups doing all of the option subjects into year 9. So I do appreciate that question and understand where it's coming from, but we do really think that it's of value to allow students to choose their options early. I'm just having a look through the questions. I wonder if either Mr. Marks or Ms. Evans think there are any others that we think are worth discussing in the meeting, or whether or not we can continue with the event, and I'll just allow them to be answered in the chat. No one? Happy? Excellent. In which case,
Mr. Jones, sorry, can I just point out that there's one asked in about the deadline. What's the time deadline on the 25th? Could we just answer that so we can confirm it?
Yep.
End of the day.
Yeah, like literally midnight. It's fine.
Yeah.
Super. Let's put that on publish midnight. Publish that. So I am now going to spend the last 5 minutes, whilst you can continue to ask questions to my timetabling colleagues, and indeed to my pastoral colleagues, Mr. Wilson and Ms. Smith, who are here on the Q&A. I just want to finish with some quite exciting news that we hope will be of interest to many of the students and indeed parents. So, very exciting announcement, which is we are intending to press ahead with the Year 8 rewards trip. Now, every year for the last 3 years, well, indeed, for the last 5 years since we first did our lower school rewards trip, we always book out the accommodation to ensure that we have a place at the hotel that we are going to be hopefully staying at. And this year, with so much uncertainty, we didn't want to launch and promote a trip that we weren't convinced would have a great chance of going ahead. Now, with the change in requirements in France on February the 12th, we are now reasonably confident, and I'll explain why just a little bit later on, that we can go ahead and start promoting our Year 8 rewards trip to Paris, which nominally will take place on the 21st to the 24th of June. I say nominally because of the changes in the regulations. We are working very, very hard at the moment to tie down as much of the logistics that we need to tie down, as many of the activities. So I don't want to confirm absolutely at the moment until I have it in writing and contracts, etc., sent to us. But we really do hope, and it was confirmed, that the accommodation is reserved with us from the 21st and 24th of June. So I said it might move, but that's when we hope it will be. A rough idea of what this rewards trip will look like. Well, day one on the Tuesday, we would leave Kingsdale to drive down the motorway and cross the channel, catching a ferry and going to the biggest aquarium in Europe and spend some time in Bologna. We would check into our accommodation. As you can see here, the accommodation is not your run-of-the-mill school trip accommodation. It's delightfully rural, whilst really interesting architecturally. And we know that every set of students that we've taken before has really, really enjoyed it. It is situated in Woodland, just outside the complex for the theme park, which is on the itinerary for the trip. And each room sleeps 4 sets of twin beds and bunk beds with its own bathroom and toilet. Lucky, lucky devils, those students. Skipped on. On day 2, again, subject to change, it may be day 3, depending on when we can get tickets. We would plan to do a trip up the Eiffel Tower, a river cruise along the Seine, and a sightseeing trip around Montmartre, where students will be given the opportunity to see the historic section of Paris, and also given the opportunity to buy souvenirs, etc. Although we'd hope they wouldn't be spending all of their money at that point. On day 3, they would be given the opportunity to go around Parc Astérix, and as we would be staying at the site, pretty much right next to the theme park, they would pretty much have the run of the place the whole day. So would not have to be driving there, be able to be there as it opens. One of the largest theme parks in Europe, very exciting. And then on day 4, throw a bit of culture at them as well, and we'd give them trip to the World War I battlefields in Normandy, and then we would get the ferry back to England. Now, the rough cost for this is £360. Now, again, at the moment, this is how much it roughly cost last time, and as everyone will be, I'm sure, aware, there is a large amount of uncertainty in terms of the cost of things, fuel prices. So until we have those contracts confirmed, I don't want to guarantee what the cost is, but it will be roughly this amount. It shouldn't be, we hope, too much more than this. That includes the 3 nights accommodation, the transport, travel insurance, and 3 morning and evening meals whilst in France, and 2 packed lunches and entrance to the sites we are visiting. I've given you an idea of a rough payment guide as to what it would look like, which will be posted on Parent Pay later in this month, again, once those costings are confirmed. We will almost certainly, even if we haven't confirmed all the final costings, we will certainly take the first payment as an instalment, because we wanted to launch today to give people an opportunity. We realised that this could be, you know, a financial commitment, to give people an opportunity to start saving if they were interested in signing their child up for this trip. So we think roughly the first instalment would be about £120 due by the 1st of April. The second instalment, again, £120 on the 1st of May, and then the final instalment of £120 on the 1st of June. We hope that this would give enough flexibility to people, spread out over enough time. And again, in an ideal situation, we would have been able to promote this earlier in the year, but we weren't really sure we were going to be able to do it until now. So if you would like your child to come, a letter will be handed out in the coming weeks when we are able to confirm all of the details that we can confirm. If the trip is oversubscribed, which it isn't normally, we do have 350 places, then places will be assigned on a lottery basis. Although I would note that the trip is designed as a reward for good behaviour. Now, we will talk to the students about what kind of behaviours and what requirements we are placing on them in order to allow them to come on the trip, but as a starting point, everyone at this point that would be allowed to go. So unless they cause us a concern from this point, then everyone at this point would be allowed to go. We don't want to put parameters that the students weren't aware of for this rewards trip. So we want to reward their good behaviour. So perfect behaviour from now until the trip leaves means that your child will be allowed to go. Now, this is what the current rules in terms of COVID travel are. Currently, the rules are that anyone over the age of 12 travelling must have proof of vaccination or a negative PCR test taken within 72 hours or an antigen test result taken within 48 hours pre-departure if age 12 or over. So we think that this means that, and this is the rules as they stand now, it may well get more relaxed, and it may be that you don't have to have these things going into June. But we do think that as a result of this current state of travel rules for France, it means that no student will be prohibited from going on this trip due to maybe a vaccination status. And we are willing to, have discussions with people who maybe have concerns about either of those two things. So please do let us know if you do have concerns about that. Both proof of vaccination and negative PCR will need to be accompanied, as it stands, by a sworn statement certifying that they are not suffering from COVID-19 symptoms. That's a reasonably simple form for the student to fill out, which we will help them do and give them prior to leaving. So that's all I wanted to say. Just some things to look out for. In the next few weeks, we'll have a letter going out with details of initial deposit and confirmation of dates. We will then plan, once everything is finalised, for an information evening in April or early May when we come back after the Easter holidays. And then in June the 21st, again, the nominal date is when we plan on going. So that is everything that I am going to mention. I noticed that we have some questions which I'll try and answer briefly. If there are any important ones, someone please flag them up. Sign up for the trip will be flagged up in the letter that goes out. So it will be to do with the first deposit. We will let people know in the next couple of weeks how you sign up for the trip when we send out the letter, because we know that people won't necessarily want to commit themselves to something if they don't know the full cost, if they don't know everything. So when that letter goes up, we will let people know how you sign up for the trip. There are just over 400 students in the year, so normally we don't get 100% people wanting to go. There are various other things that people do, or they may be away, or they may just not want to go. So normally normally that is enough. Someone has helpfully pointed out that it is a double vaccination necessary for France. One is not enough. So yeah, a student would need to be double vaccinated to get that status. If they are not double vaccinated, as I mentioned, that they would have to have that PCR or antigen test at 72 hours before. So I think I have covered this is a question of what is the capacity again, the selection process, luck draw. I'm afraid it will have to be that if we are oversubscribed. Again, we are not normally oversubscribed, and we will put the France PowerPoint. I will make sure that the France PowerPoint goes out to the students. Can we share the France PowerPoint with parents? I will wait until we have final confirmation of all of the activities before we share the PowerPoint. We'll send it out in the letter in the coming weeks, but we will make sure that all of the information is in there. So I think,
Mr. Jones, sorry, there's one question I think is worth answering is,
Yep.
Can it be an NHS PCR? Does it need to be a fit to fly? I'm sure it'd be a fit to fly, but you tell me otherwise.
we will double check. When I was on the government website, it didn't specify which one, but we will double check that and make sure that goes out with the letter. Someone has also helpfully just put that you do need a minimum of 3 months on passports for the EU. So if your passport is going to expire, then it is probably worth making sure that you get on board on top of applying for a new one to ensure that your child has a new passport if they are looking to go on this trip. Someone has put very helpfully, the school community coming together. It is fit to fly PCR, not a NHS PCR. So thank you very much. It is always helpful having people who I'm sure have actually experienced the travel to France in the last couple of months. So if there are no more really important questions, again, please do send us emails if you have any questions. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Ms. Smith, Mr. Wilson, for being here, Ms. Evans and Ms. Marks, and thank you all very much for coming and attending, and we really look forward to the students choosing their options, which I hope the students are really excited about. We're really excited about guiding them through that process, and also the rewards trip to celebrate the amazing work that they've done in lower school, with the most disruption that any lower school group in my living memory have ever had, and they've done such a fantastic job. We're really looking forward to celebrating that on our trip abroad. So thank you very much, parents. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and please, any questions, send to us at the addresses that I will provide on the announcements. Thank you.